Hi everybody, very welcome to yet another live stream here inside of the Mentour Aviation app. I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic wherever you are, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that this live stream is going out well. Yeah, I can see that it's coming out on the app. So guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's just because I'm transmitting this live both on YouTube and in the app, which I do sometimes in order to just make sure that everything is working here. See, I just have to connect the Mentour Aviation app to the live stream to make sure that everything is working properly, and it seems to be great. Yeah, like I was saying, sometimes I transmit these live streams that is primarily for the app in both YouTube and in the app, and that's just to make sure that you guys who are on YouTube realize that these live streams occur and that I do them in the app. And I try to do them in the app maybe 2, 3, or maybe 4 times a week, because it is a smaller and a little bit more kind of private and intimate way of communicating with my top followers. So if you guys don't have the app already, shame on you. Just go and download it. It's completely free to download it. But, and there's a little caveat to it. In order to ask questions inside of these live streams, you need to be a premium member in the app, because I needed to kind of limit it in some way. Otherwise, there will be thousands of questions, just like on YouTube. So everyone who has the app, which is free to download, can watch these live streams. But if you want to ask your questions, well, then you need to get the premium subscription of the app, okay? And that's something that I'm keeping for my premium customers. And also, if you are a member of my Patreon crew. So I really appreciate the job that my Patreon crew is doing. And if you are a Patreon at the $10 level or up, then just send me a message and I will give you the premium membership inside of the app for free. All right, so that's included in being part of my Patreon crew. So having said that, I'm going to go to start talking aviation. I had a great flight yesterday, guys. Like one of those lovely flights that you hope for every time that you go to the airport. I flew with a really nice, experienced first officer. The weather here in Girona was absolutely beautiful. Took off into the sunset. We flew to Billund in Denmark. When we landed, there were all sorts of fireworks. I mean, if you're following me on Instagram, you would have seen some of the photos that I took, because Billund Airport is just next to Legoland, and they do fireworks there every evening. So we landed. Fireworks. We unfortunately had a slot of about an hour. It turned out at the end, which didn't really matter, to be honest. We just chilled. I managed to do a little bit of a live thing for YouTube, which I haven't done before. And then we took off, and I flew it back to Girona. Beautiful flight, or a little bit of headwind, but nice views over Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Paris, into Girona, and then a nice landing here in Girona. One of those perfect days that I'm really hoping that you guys get the chance to experience. Having said that, I just wanted to share that with you. We can start with some of the questions that's coming in. I can see that Spyros, Den, Pilot Marlon is here. Everyone is asking how I'm doing. And this is what I love with the Mentour Aviation kind of community, because everyone really cares about each other. It's a really safe, positive, and constructive environment. So if you guys are new to aviation, or if you're a nervous flyer or something like that, then get into the different forums that we have in the chat, because you'll find that there's loads of lovely people in there that the only thing they want to do is help each other out. They will ask questions, they will answer questions, and it's just a lovely community. Over the Clouds is a good example of that. She's one of our most active users. She is unfortunately leaving now, and Sam is also on the road, so don't text and drive, Sam. That's a bad thing to do. So what happens if you don't get a pass on your medical class 1 from Pilot Marlon? Yeah, that depends a little bit on why you didn't get a pass. Sometimes there are things like your levels in your blood might be slightly off, so you might have too high cholesterol, something like that, which is something that you can work on, and kind of change your diet or whatever, and get back and get better results second time. In that case, then it's a big deal still, but it's not such a big deal. But if you fail your class 1 medical because of some kind of underlying, maybe some heart problem or something like that, well, then unfortunately you won't be able to become a commercial pilot. So getting through your class 1 is really, really important, obviously. I've done videos on that. If you go into my channel and look for Medical Mentor, you will see that I did 2 different videos where I actually interview an aeromedical examiner, and he gets to explain all of these things, and things like, what if you've had ADHD, what if you're on medications, what if you're colorblind, what if you have diabetes. All of these things we discussed in that video, so go in and check that out. ATC Master 1, hi Mentor, how are you? I'm good, thank you. I have a question. What is your longest flight beside the delivery flight from Seattle to Dubai? Well, it was a delivery flight from Seattle to Dublin, but apart from that, I've done flights that are around 4.5, 5 hours long, one way, and then we turn around 25 minutes and we fly back. Okay, so 4 or 5 hours tends to be kind of the limit of where you can do a commercial flight with a 737-800, and it's still commercially viable. If you start to stretch out to 6 hours, it is possible, but then you might start to have problems with not being able to carry the full passenger load. So somewhere around there. The longest flight that we had from Girona was from Girona to Skellefteå in northern Sweden, and that was just over 4 hours long. In normal kind of still air. So that's what we tend to do. And to be perfectly honest, longer flights than that in the 800 cockpit, like, it just kills your back. You get pain in your ass after a while. You have to get up and walk around a little bit and stuff. I don't like doing long flights. To be honest, any flights that longer than 1.5 hours, I prefer doing a shorter one. But that's just me. Pilot Marlon, love this community. Yeah, that's it. And guys, once again, if you're here on YouTube and you're wondering why I'm not answering questions, it's because this is an app live stream. Okay, this is a live stream that is being streamed inside of the Mentour Aviation app. So I'm answering questions from inside of the app, but I let people on the YouTube community see it so that I can get more of you guys into the app. Okay, absolutely free to download. You'll have a link in every single one of my videos. So do not use the super chat function. Right, I just want to emphasize that. Do not use the super chat function on YouTube because I cannot see it. Right, I cannot answer it. So get into the app instead and ask your questions there. Then, do you always keep the Q&A from ATC, or is it also available on the company iPads? Well, we do get, we download the weather onto our iPads, but that's not up to date. It might be quite old. So when we're flying and you're starting an approach, for example, you always need to get the QNH, which is the area pressure at the airport, in order to make sure that that the altimeters are up to date and that it's showing the correct value. It's one of the big threats if you're doing a non-position approach and you don't have the right QNH. In that case, you can actually think that you're flying nicely in towards the airport, but you might end up several hundred feet below. So it's one of those things that we do talk about as a potential threat, and we always update to make sure we have the latest QNH before we start any approach. Rich, great to have you here, Rich, inside of the app. Hi, Petter. Hope all is well with you. It is indeed. I have a question. Have you ever had a hydraulic system A failure with flying in review and service? Doesn't A power the flaps and the landing gear? Well, it powers the landing gear. Flaps is B. So A is mainly the landing gear, to be perfectly honest. There are some subsystems as well that are connected to A, half of the flight spoilers, several things like that. But with a hydraulic system A failure, it is basically the landing gear extension that is going to be the issue. So I have not had that. Okay, a complete loss of hydraulic systems is extremely rare. Obviously, I am training this, I'm instructing this, we're doing this in sim quite often. It's not a big deal, because if you've seen my video about manual gear extension, I've done a video on that. You'll see that the only thing it does is it adds maybe 15 seconds to the approach time, the time it takes for you to actually physically release the landing gear. But apart from that, it's not a big issue. There are some performance limitations when it comes to landing performance, things like that. Not a big deal. Hydraulic system B failure is worse, right? That will cause more problems, since you're going to have to kind of drive the flaps out manually, things like that. Great question, by the way. And hydraulic system failures is something that I am likely going to make videos about and post inside of the app. So those of you who are premium members, you will get that as soon as I get my hands on a simulator where I can actually instruct it and show it. So these kind of failures, keep sending me questions about failures, because then I know what you guys are interested in and I can do videos about it. So once again, guys, I have gotten in. People are telling me here that let's see. There's people calling me. So people are telling me that there are super chat questions coming in. I cannot answer the super chat questions, guys, because this is an app live stream. But I've been told, let's see here, if I go in. Okay, so there's the super chat question. All right, I'll answer this one, but do not send any more super chat questions on YouTube, because this is in the app. Hi from Korea. I know people who get LASIK laser eye surgery can be pilot, but I wonder there's any medical regulation exist about SMILE LASIK theoretically possible, but I can't find clearly standard. So this is why you have to be very careful when it comes to laser surgery before you're class 1. All right. There are certain procedures that are approved, other procedures are not approved. And even if you do an approved procedure, you still have to pass a specific test afterwards. So I talk about this in that video I mentioned about medical examinations. And the medical examiner basically said that you only, if it was up to him, he would only do laser surgery if you are well outside of the limits, because then you're not really losing anything, right? If you can't get your class 1 medical because you're outside of the limits, well, then you can do it and see if you can get yourself inside. But if you do, you need to do that under the direct guidance of an AME that tells you exactly what you're allowed to do and what the risks are. If you are inside of the limits and you need to use glasses like I do, he said, do not do laser surgery until your airline career is over, because there is a risk that you might, if you're doing it just to get rid of your glasses and get and lenses, there's a risk that you might actually lose your class 1 medical because something goes wrong in the procedure. You start to get those kind of phantom lights, especially during the hours of darkness, and then you lose your class 1 medical. So he said he wouldn't, at least not with the current technology, do any kind of laser surgery if you can keep your class 1 medical without doing it, right? But once again, you need to consult your AME before you do anything like that. It is very, very important. Right, so I'm missing some questions here. Questions from Man is asking, what is baro in the 737? Yeah, so there are two. If there's a button on the EFIS control panel, and it says either baro or radar, or radio, I mean. So if you press that, you switch in between two different minimas. The first minima is the baro minima. That's the minima that is based on QNH. So if you have that on, you'll see that your baro selector, the minima selector, will go up and down on your altimeter band. And it's shown down in the right-hand corner of your primary flight display. If you switch it over to radar, radio, then you get your radio altimeter minimums, which we use when we do Cat 2 and Cat 3 landings. So when we do a Cat 3 landing, we set that to 50 feet radio. And that will be on the top right corner of your primary flight display. So that's what we do, what we use that for. It basically shows the minima. Instead of towards a barometric minima, it's towards a radio altimeter minima. Navarian 5. What does commercial pilots do after age 60? He may have 7 years to retirement, but not allowed to land at some airports. I think now globally, most people or most countries allow pilots to fly up to 65. All over Europe, we can do that. I believe in the States it's the same as well. If not, what tended to happen back in the day was that when you passed 60, if you weren't allowed to fly as a commander, you were still allowed to fly as a first officer. So a lot of old captains just moved over to the right-hand seat, probably still getting paid the same, but weren't allowed to be the effective commander of the aircraft. And in that case, they could just fly the last couple of years as their foe, or some people just retired early. I mean, if it were up to me, I would love to retire at 55 already, and then just fly a little bit, maybe do a couple of flights a month or something, and concentrate on stuff like this instead. So most pilots, they don't want to. I mean, I've been flying for 17 years. I can feel it in my, my back is starting to hurt. I had a problem with kidney stones in the beginning of the year. Those are not things that I'm not sure that it's completely connected to flying as such, but it's definitely connected to me sitting down so much for so many hours every day. So physically, it does take a toll on you. And that's something that maybe it's good to kind of start stepping down after 60. Anyway, in Europe we can fly to 65, so it's not really an issue. Nat 12, great to have you here, Nat. Good afternoon to you, but it's morning in Wisconsin, USA, so good morning. Good morning to you. Direshire is saying, hey, do you think you'll fly cargo after this phase of your career? I don't know. I could. The problem with cargo is that it tends to be quite tough rosters. It's a lot of night flying, because that's when the cargo needs to be moved around generally. And with me having small children and wanting to be home and spend as much time as possible with them, it's unlikely that I'm going to be flying cargo. But then again, if I'm standing here without a job, and I need a job, well, then obviously I'm going to take a cargo job. And sometimes the terms and conditions, I know in Cargolux are very good, for example. DHL, I haven't checked that out, but there's loads of good contracts out there to fly cargo, and it doesn't really matter to me. I love flying, and I don't really care if there's passengers or cargo in the back. So, Becca, Pete, do you work with paper flight logs or do you use electric logs on iPads in your company? We still have everything on the electrical iPad, but we still have to, by law, keep paper copies of the flight plans. When it comes to logbooks, that's different. Then that's up to each pilot what kind of logbook they want to use. Spiros, what about radar failure? What about weather radar failure? Does it ever happen? Yeah, it does. It's rare, but it does happen. And in that case, you just have to be more careful when you're flying into an area where there's potential thunderstorms. You wouldn't even fly into an area with potential thunderstorms. So there are limitations if you have a failure like that. You basically can only fly into good weather airports. Nekedon, hi Mentor, can you do a video on how plane navigation works? I can. The problem with those kind of videos, guys, is that a huge part of the people who are watching me on YouTube are not really interested in these really technical videos about what we actually do in the flight deck, how we navigate. And a way to see that, the reason I know that is because you can look at, for example, when Captain Joe has been doing videos about VOR navigation, which is brilliant, by the way. It doesn't get much views, right? There's not much people are interested in knowing how a VOR works or even knows what a VOR is. So I could go in and talk about, area navigation, about GPS navigation, about all of these kind of things, but I don't think that the interest is really there. So that's something that I could do if I have time over and do here inside of the app, because I know that people inside of the app are really like hardcore enthusiasts. You guys would probably love this. But for YouTube, it's a bit so and so. And at the moment, since I'm working a lot, I'm flying a lot, I'm struggling to keep up with the pace of getting a quality video out every week as it is. So it's unlikely to come very soon, but I'm definitely aiming for doing more technical videos. Pilot Marlon, what is the max bank angle that you can do in cruise? So that differs depending on how high you are. The LNAV takes care of that to make sure that we keep a certain margin. Generally speaking, we can keep up to 25 degrees, rate 1, all the way up into our maximum altitude. What we do in my company is to make sure that we always have that kind of maneuver margin, even if it would start to be turbulent. We limit it to 10 if we're in heading select. So in LNAV, we let LNAV take care of it, because LNAV will know what kind of limitation. Basically, the computer will take care of it. But if we're doing heading select, so we do manual headings, we keep it at 10 degrees above 30,000 feet. Then, why do we not use the thrust reversers on every landing? I'm not sure. There's a risk with that, but using only the brakes would get it too hot and would need waiting for short turnarounds. Yes, so we have a manual, and in the manual it says exactly how much energy we get from each braking. So depending on the aircraft weight, outside temperature, the landing speed, how much braking we're using, it will calculate an amount of energy that's transferred into the brakes, and then we can use different calculations to bring ourselves to a turnaround time. Okay, so that's what we do. You can do, for example, if I'm landing on a really long runway and I'm not intending to brake much, I'm just using auto brake 1, then I can go in and see how much energy that will be, and maybe I'll be able to do a 25-minute turnaround even with auto brake in. And in that case, obviously for noise reasons, for people living around the airport, for fuel burn, for stress of the engines, all of that, we can skip using the reversers. We will always select them though. Like you will always see the reversers coming up, opening the doors, but we might not go to actually, reverse thrust. And that is to save environment, to save noise, all of that. There are some really noise sensitive airports. Billund, for example, is one of those where we try to land with idle reverse thrust every time. Okay, but that's the reason. But we always do, and when we do that, we have to make sure that there's not a problem with too hot brakes for the departure. But last flight of the day, when we come home and we're going to land and the aircraft is going to stand overnight, always idle if needed, unless it's needed, I mean. Okay, question from Men. Thank you, that makes sense. Great stuff. Sansis 88, the app live is the best aviation friend. Keep going, Peter. Thank you. Well, I'm happy that you guys like it. This is not a problem for me. I can do these in-app live streams whenever I feel like, whenever I have some time open, or when I see inside of the chat, for example, that you guys are discussing something. Maybe there's something that is a little bit of controversy going, let's say about Boeing and Airbus and what's happening with the Boeing 737 MAX and stuff. If I see that there's something I can answer, well, then I can just click in and do a live stream and explain it to you guys inside of the app. And this is one of the reasons why I really love the flexibility that the app gives me. So, question from Men. Penny wanted me to say hi to you on her behalf as she couldn't make it. Yeah, say hello to Penny. Penny she's very active inside of the app as well. She's a 14-year-old girl in Australia who's doing her training right now, and she's really, really enthusiastic. And those are the kind of things that keeps me going, to see that like 13, 14-year-olds are coming in and they're getting a community that's kind of holding them up, and when they feel down, someone come in and tell, push them, make sure that they feel okay. That's exactly the kind of community that I wanted this community to be. So it makes me really, really happy, and thank you, Adrian, for bringing forward the that she said hello. Easy Life. Hi, Petter. Have you ever had a cabin pressure loss? And if so, what did it feel like? No, I haven't had an actual depressurization. I have depressurized the cabin myself as part of a procedure at a fairly low altitude. So I do know kind of the feeling, and it's a very strange feeling, I have to say. But I imagine that it's nothing like an actual rapid depressurization at altitude, because the bigger the differential pressure is, the harder. The worse it's going to feel, the more pain you're going to feel, the more stuff is going to come flying from the floor. So it is like an emergency descent is something that's going to feel very traumatic if you don't know what's going on, which is why you should probably pay attention tonight, actually. So then, thanks for all your answers. How do we decide when to deploy, say, flaps 5 versus 10, 30, 40? What are the speed restrictions? And do we get an indication or some help to understand when it's safe to deploy more flaps? Yeah, you do. First of all, if you're flying like one of these more advanced flight simulators, which I'm guessing that you're asking for, you'll see that just down on the center pedestal, down to the left, there is a little map showing exactly what the maximum speeds are for each flap setting. We, the pilots, need to know them by heart so that we don't select flaps when the speed is too high. But basically, flaps 1 and flaps 5 below 250 knots, flaps 10 below 210 knots, 15 below 190 knots, flaps 30 is 175 knots, and flaps 40 is 162 knots. So below those speeds, you can take them. We take flaps 1 and flaps 5 outside of 10 nautical miles normally. We try to take gear down flap 15 and then continue the landing checklist at about 5 or 4 miles, depending on if it's bad or good weather. And then after that, once we've taken the gear down flap 15 and reduced the speed, you'll see it on the speed bug. Okay, you'll be able to see as well on your speed tape. There will be a little bug coming up with the appropriate speed to keep, the minimum maneuvering speed for each flap. If you have the speed wounded down to that, so say 15, and you put the speed bug on top of the 15 bug, then you are safe to take the next flap. Okay, it's not, the only thing you can't do is go from like flaps 1 to flaps 30, right? If you do that, you're going to overspeed the flaps. But if you take them step by step, and you reduce speed in between, then you're always going to be safe. Cool. Yesterday's video is awesome. Thanks for releasing it on YouTube from Balai. Yeah, I did that because it has been live on the app for several weeks now. I think most premium members have already seen that video that I did. So I thought it was good to release it out to the public so that people who are interested in becoming pilots have access to it and get those answers to the questions. By the way, guys, if you're here and you are interested in that little funding news that I'm coming out with, I can tell you that there are some great things in process. I can't tell you what it is yet because we haven't got all of the different actors locked in. But basically, I am seeing the hurt. I am seeing the pain that people are feeling out there when it comes to not being able to become pilot because of financial reasons. And I want to help. All right, there's several things that I want to do to improve the training industry, and I will tell you about it. I'm going to do videos about it. I'm going to explain everything when the time comes. But what I need you guys to do now, and this is extremely important, I have had different Facebook and Instagram posts out, okay, regarding the newsletter that we've created. There's a link up here in the app as well. It says pilot funding. I want you guys to not only go there and fill in that, right? That's important that you do, but I want you to spread the word about this to everyone that you think want to become a pilot. It's not going to be competition for these places, guys. I need to understand this. If this becomes the way that I envisage it to be, everyone will have a chance. Not everyone will succeed. It's only going to be available for the people who can show through proper assessment that they have what it takes to become an airline pilot. But if you do, if you are one of those and you go through this system, then we will do our damnedest to make sure that you have access to money to do the training and then be kind of ushered into an airline of some sort. This doesn't mean that this is going to be free, right? I am not Santa Claus. I cannot produce millions of euros out of thin air. What I can do is making sure that there is a system in force that can guarantee that there is funding, as in loans, available to the right people. All right, to the people that will be able to be successful and get into the industry. That is the focus that we're keeping now. It's still going to cost a bit of money. It's still going to be, it's not going to be like you get all of the funding and that's it. There's going to be a little bit of skin in the game, as we call it. And that's important because normally you need to pay that in order to feel that kind of urgency of making sure that you get through the course and that you're fully invested in it. So there will be a cost to it. But it's just going to be, like now, it is completely inhibitive. It's like you cannot become a pilot if you don't have a massive amount of money or access to a massive amount of money. That's what I want to change. I want to make sure that all of you people who want to and can become these great pilots, that you will have the chance to. So that's the point I wanted to make. I need you guys to go to my Facebook, the Mentor Pilot Facebook page, and I want you to go share the post that I made. Right? Share it everywhere, because you never know which one of your little sisters or aunts or uncles have actually thought about becoming a pilot, but have just thrown away that completely because they thought that it wasn't possible. And these are the people that we need to reach. I know that you guys want to become a pilot. You have already clicked. You've already filled in your names. But what we need to do now is we need to find all of the others, the 14-year-old girls out there who doesn't think that it's for them. It is for you, right? We need all of the female pilots that we can get. We can't limit it to only half of humanity. We need every single one to be tested to make sure and then get this chance. So share it, share it, share it. Because if I can show, right now I have about 2,500 people that have signed up for this. All right, that signed up, that they're interested. It doesn't mean that everyone will do it, will actually sign up, but that they're interested. But if I can show that we have 10,000 people that are interested in this, it's going to be a completely different ball game. And it means that I can go to the financial firms that I'm talking to, that we are talking to, because it's not just me, it's some major players in the industry, that we can go and show them, like, listen, here, look at this. This is how many people that wants to take money to get trained, to become pilots, to get great salaries within good, reputable airlines. Help us, help you. Basically, that's what we want to try to do. So make sure that you go out and share these people. Well, I need help with this. I reach a lot of people, but I don't reach enough people, and I don't convince people enough that they could become a pilot, even though they could. That's it. Rant over. Rintaro, clearance delivery is probably the most information dense. I trained myself to just write down what's being said, read it back, and only then do I actually check. Okay, there's a lot of, and only then do I actually check what my charts and info will verify what it means. Yeah, that is not a great way of doing it, to be perfectly honest. What you should be doing is if you're expecting an IFR clearance that's going to be very long, you should have an idea of what to expect. Right, you know which waypoint you're flying towards. You know what kind of arrivals or sort of departures that's going to be connected to that. So you should anticipate it. There's normally only one that suits you. And if you get something different than that, then you need to verify it. So you can't just blindly write down what ATC is telling you and then try to figure out what it is, because that means that you have lost situational awareness. So have a plan of what you can expect, then write it down, and then verify it if it doesn't make sense with what you had planned. Echo Alpha Tango. Okay, so you guys seem to be talking to each other. Let's see if I missed something here. Balai is asking, hi Mentor. Question, what will you say about spacecraft carrier 747? Will it have more drag? Yes. It will have more drag. Only the stuff that is needed on top of it in order to carry the space shuttle will create more drag. And of course, with the space shuttle on top of it, it's going to be an immensely amount of drag. But I'm sure that you're referring to Captain Joe's video about it. So just go and check that out. I think he probably answered it. I haven't seen it myself, though. So Direshire, I'm thinking of taking the leap into private license lessons. I've done sim flying and feel confident with the aircraft knowledge. My biggest fear is complicated readback with ATC. Does it get easier with time? Yeah, it does. It's like everything. You know, if you start speaking French and you listen to a French person, in the beginning, you're not going to understand. You're not going to capture everything they say. You're not going to understand everything they say because your brain is still processing the first part of their sentence while they're speaking the last. Okay. When you become fluent in French, you don't have to do that. Your mind is already processing what's being said. So it becomes second nature. And for me, for example, I mean, when I'm speaking to ATC, it's like speaking to an old friend. I have no problems. And if I do have problem understanding, I just tell them that, okay, can you just say that again and bring it down? So it becomes second nature. You do not have to worry about ATC. It will be tough in the beginning and it will get easier and easier as you go. And after a while, you won't understand what you were worried about in the first place. Navarian 5, thanks, Peter. Next question. If you had autopilot failure but could fly manually, would you do so for the next 4 hours to make an emergency landing? No, I will continue to fly manually. You might need to descend down below RVSM airspace because that might need an autopilot in order to fly above 28,000 feet in reduced vertical separation minima. But not a problem with hand flying the thing. I would hand fly it for a while and then we'd probably switch it over, let the first officer do it for a while to kind of relax a little bit and fly it like that. We are trained to fly this aircraft without autopilot. The autopilot is a non-essential extra, except for, like I said, if you need to do like a Cat 3 approach or if you need to fly in RVSM airspace. Rintaro, saying to practice by listening to ATC and pretending to read back instructions. Exactly. That's actually how I learned. When I did my training, we had these audio tapes and you listen to it and you kind of paused it and then you read it back or you practice writing down shorthand and then you work like that, because the more exposed you are to air traffic controller communications, the easier it will become for you. With the auto brakes 1, 2, 3 or max, when do you use them setting as in runway length? Well, once again, we have an operational performance tool that tells us what we need, and we just use that. So if I put in all of the environmental information, winds, weight of the aircraft, the QNH, the temperature, runway state, stuff like that, it will tell us that, okay, we have this much runway. With auto brake 3, you will stop within that distance. You need to use auto brake 3. Auto brake 2 and 1 is too short. You're going to end up on the other side of the runway. So for us, that's what we do. We do that calculation for each and every landing. So Direshire, you're talking about ATC still, we'll skip that. Stansis 88, what are the pre-flight and dispatch procedures before entering your aircraft? I have done a video on that. Check it out. Check it out, pre-flight mentor, and you'll find the video, okay? Echo Alpha Tango. Dyshire, do it. You won't regret it. It was horrible on the radio when I started. You'll get better with practice. Best thing to do is write your clearance instructions down on paper. Makes it much easier to read back. And don't be afraid to ask. Exactly. Don't be afraid to ask them to repeat. They know that sometimes you're new, sometimes you miss stuff. It is completely normal. Any idea what a Piper PA-28 TDI is? I'm flying it on the 26th of October. TDI, could it be that it's a diesel engine? It's possible. I don't know, to be perfectly honest. The general aviation aircraft, I haven't flown for 15 years, I think. So I've lost a little bit of contact with that, unfortunately. So Rich, hi Petter, thank you for doing these live streams in the app. Well, thank you for being here. Okay. Echo Alpha Tango. No, it's talking about the TDI still. Hi Mentor, question. What you will say about spacecraft carrier 747? Okay, we talked about that already. Mentor, I think I've asked it before, but how do you fix sleeping habits in 2 days upside down when changing from late shift to early shift? Well, we don't do that. I work early shift and then I have 3 days off and then I work a late shift. So you have 3 days to kind of adapt. But the fact is that you get, that this is very, very personal. Some people have it really easy to switch. Some people have it really hard. And you just have to do whatever you can. Like hardest for me is always to switch from late, which I've been on now, to earliest, which I'm going to fly next week. And what I do is I just make sure that I shift my entire routine around a little bit. So I eat maybe 2 hours earlier than I would normally. I go maybe watch a little bit of TV to wind myself down. I go brush my teeth. I make sure that the room is dark and calm and cold. And I go to bed at 8:30. Even if I'm not tired, I go to bed at 8:30, and then I just force myself. And for me, I've kind of learned that routine. So it means that I go to bed at 8:30, I sleep at 9, and I get my 7.5 hours of sleep approximately the first night. And I work on not getting a sleep debt built up. It's very hard though, because early is no one should ever get up before 6 o'clock in the morning ever. That's my view. Navarian 5, what is the protocol for broken or fractured cockpit window? We have a checklist for that inside of our quick reference handbook. So it depends very much on if the pressurization is being affected. So there are several panes in a cockpit window. So I think it's the 3 of them. So if you have a crack in the outside one and it has no effect on the pressurization, then normally we can fly with it, continue with it, and get it changed when we get down on the ground. If you start to have 2 panes cracked, or if there's pressurization problems, well, then you have to descend and land as quickly as possible because it could shatter, which we've seen examples of. Question for men. Are you allowed to land on a runway with, example, snow on it, but only a little, or would you hold and wait for the airport personnel to clean the runway? Depends on the depth. We have a maximum depth. Now I can't remember. It's 3 millimeters of rain, but it's much more of snow, obviously, that they have to make sure that it's not more than the maximum. But apart from that, it's just braking action. So depending on what kind of deposit there is, either we have braking action given by traffic control, or we calculate it based on what kind of deposit it is on the runway. And then we look, can the aircraft land or not? And if the braking action is too poor for us to land, no, then we go somewhere else, or we let them clean it. Pilot Marlon, I'm flying the Cessna 152, and when my instructor talks to ATC, I can't understand what they're saying, but what you say makes sense, makes me feel much better. Thank you for your advice. Yeah, it's also a thing that you are actually concentrating on flying. So when you're concentrating on flying, a lot of your capacity is going to be used up by you handling the aircraft, and there will be less time or capacity for your brain to think and kind of understand what you're talking about. But all of this will come with training. Balai, Mentor, will you select which taxiway to exit before landing? Yeah, we do. We talk about which exit we're going to aim for. We try to minimize the taxi time. So if we see that there is an intersection that we can take, well, then we're trying to take a flap setting and an auto brake setting that will enable us to slow down and take that to minimize taxi time. Have you ever flown a seaplane? Do you need special training for this? I haven't, and yes, you do need special training for that. It's a specific add-on to your certificate. Mark Ribe, hi there. Good to see you here. And Sam, Valerio 5, do you think a couple of PPL exams past for 75 are a problem for a potential employer? No, you pass them. They're not going to look at that, especially not on the PPL stage. They might look at your pass rate on the CPL part, but not in the PPL. You don't have to worry about that. Guys, once again, if you're looking at this on YouTube and wondering why isn't he answering any of our questions, is because I am doing this. This is an app live stream. Okay, this is a live stream that is transmitted in the app. Sometimes I let this go to YouTube as well in order to show you guys on YouTube that I do these live streams on the app. Okay, but I only see questions that are coming inside of the app from my premium members. Okay. Now someone is saying that there's another super chat question. Please do not use super chat questions on these live streams, on the app live streams, okay? Because it's a different type, it's a different way of doing a live stream. The Sunday live streams is when I speak only on YouTube, right? Then I don't use the app, and that's when you can use your super chat questions. But let's see if I can find here. It's a little bit of a different interface in order for me to find this super chat. Here we go. Martin, NDX, I hope you're great. Is there a regulation or a preference for feet per minute during climb and descent? What is the max feet per minute you use during climb and descent, and what does it depend on ETC? There can be a minimum. So during a climb out, for example, if you're doing a departure, then there is a minimum percentage that you need to fly. So maybe 7% climb rate. And then an easy way to calculate how much that is in climb rate is just take it times your ground speed. So I always take it times 200, which is around the up speed of the 737. So say you have a 7% times 200. All right, so I need about 1,400 feet per minute on that type of departure. So that can be it. During the final approach, then we tend not to be more than 1,000 feet per minute rate of descent, unless you have pre-briefed it and there's a lot of tailwind, or it's a much steeper approach, like into London City, for example. Then you are going to need more than 1,000 feet per minute. But those are general ones. When we're out climbing away or descending and we have a long descent clearance, no, there's no restrictions. You can climb or descend as much as you like. But during the last 2,000 feet and 1,000 feet, we need to reduce the climb or descent rate. And that is because we might be getting into close to another aircraft. So you say one aircraft here that is 1,000 feet above your cleared level, and you're coming and you're climbing like a bat out of hell like this. You might actually trigger a resolution advisory and force this guy to climb away. So we'd reduce it to 2,000 feet per minute, 2,000 to go, 1,000 feet per minute, 1,000 to go. By doing that, we minimize the risk for inadvertently triggering resolution advisories. But that's a great question. Okay, really, really good question. Thank you. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about sleeping cycles here from Antimony. Have you ever flown a triple engine jet like the MD-11? No, I have not, so I can't really speak about that. I've flown it as a passenger, but that's it. And Antimony has having problems with his sleeping cycle. I understand that. There's a lot of people who have problems with that. So, on a cargo plane, is the hold pressurized? I imagine this would save quite some weight, but I am not sure how the cockpit would be kept pressurized. Well, yes. Basically, the whole aircraft, it's round for a reason. It's because it's easier to make a pressurized hull that is round like that. It's easier to keep the pressure equal. So that means that everything inside of that round is pressurized. Okay. The only parts of an aircraft that is not pressurized is basically the tail cone, right? Where the APU is situated is normally not pressurized. But apart from that, everything you see is pressurized. Guys, I'm going to have to cut this short now. We've done this for 46 minutes. Once again, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you have the Mentour Aviation app for my next live stream, okay? It is, I'm trying to do it as often as possible. It's not as formal as the ones that I do on YouTube. Just get the app, right? Go in there. You're going to see that there's loads of videos, special videos that I haven't sent out on YouTube. You're going to find forums for nervous flyers or Boeing versus Airbus, or like yesterday we got a suggestion of a new forum, which was what was it called? Like bad CS bad instructors. So people are sharing stories about when they flew with an instructor that was treating them badly and how they dealt with that. There's loads of things that are being discussed inside of it. It's a fantastic forum, and it's completely free to download. So just go to your app store, or I think there's a link in the in YouTube description. At least it should be. And download the app. Make sure that you go to settings and set up your profile and your profile picture. Right, that's something I ask for everyone. Right, I know it's a free app, but please do set that up. Okay, it's like an aviation CV. If you identify yourself as a pilot, you're going to get a few wings. If you don't, you're going to get a ring around your profile. But we want to see your profile picture. Okay, I'm just going to go through to make sure that people haven't sent out super chat questions on YouTube here. Gary, I meant it helped me understand. Well, okay, good, Gary. So as I said a couple of weeks ago, that my brother is doing his Navy fighter pilot training. He had to go through the whole ATPL, and your videos have helped understand a lot of what he was learning. Helped you understand a lot what he was learning. Thank you so much. Great. That's what I'm hoping. This is what I'm doing. This whole project, the Mentor project, in them. It's to help you guys, both people who want to understand about aviation, people who are in aviation and want to learn more, and people who want to become pilots. So I'm really happy to hear that I'm helping out. Nicholas Blackmore is asking, did you see Microsoft new flight simulator? Do you play flight simulator games for fun? Absolutely fantastic. No, I don't play flight simulator games for fun, but my son, who's 10, is just starting now, is becoming more and more obsessed with it. And I have seen the videos. My friend of mine, Flight Shops, fantastic channel, if you haven't subscribed to him already, did a kind of evaluation video on the new Microsoft Flight Sim, and it looks amazing. Like the visuals in the game looks absolutely crazy. I don't know what kind of supercomputer you will need in order to render those things, but I mean, if it's half as good as it looks, it's going to be revolutionizing the flight simulator industry. I hope they keep it open source so that you can add on things like VATSIM and air traffic and live weather and all of those kind of things. But we shall see. It is after all Microsoft. So that's it, guys. Have an absolutely fantastic weekend. I'm going to keep working on my video for tonight, so make sure to stay tuned. And like I said again, share the Facebook post about the flight school funding. Okay, you don't sign up for anything. You don't have to pay for anything. There's nothing like that. But I do need as many as possible who are interested to show that they're interested, so I can go with this huge amount of email addresses to the bank, say, listen, look, all of these people are interested in becoming pilots. Now help them, please. Boom, like that. So please do help me share that. And if you need a link, if you just want to do a Facebook post of your own, or you want to share it on Twitter, just tag me in the when you share it, so I can see who's helping out. And just go up, the link in the app is up here. Just click that and you can just copy the URL. You'll find the link immediately when you go into mentorpilot.com as well. Have an absolutely fantastic day wherever you are, my friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.